Welcome to the Manuchehri Show, where energy and medicine meet. I will be your host for the next hour. I have over 19 years of healthcare experience and began my career as an energy medicine practitioner while working as an oncology nurse at a Seattle area hospital. My skill in moving energy combined with my medical background have been a catalyst for change in many people's lives. I hope the next hour will be transformative for you as well. Good morning and welcome to the Manuchehri Show. We're live here in kind of rainy but absolutely gorgeous fall leaves, Seattle. And yes, just a reminder, please don't move here. It already takes me a long time to get to the studio. In fact, we were laughing this morning because Justine and I do walk up and sometimes run, 5 flights of stairs right before the show. But today we had to run really fast because we were just kind of stuck in traffic.
Like double time in the stairs. I want to stand in the stairwell next time, like right near, to see how you guys motivate getting up.
And so I just caught my breath. Literally. And so, anyway, don't move to Seattle, please. Yeah, please don't. Unless you have some great idea on how to reduce our traffic here and help us all get safely to our destinations, which we hope you are all safely now ready to listen to a lovely show here where one of my favorite things to do is to interview people who I believe are on the leading edge of thought. And today is one of those days. One of my favorite organizations is the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And they brought my attention to Freddy Silva, who is an author of, I think, 5 books now. And he's going to be teaching at East West Bookshop. I believe this weekend we'll be talking about that. No, it's October 21st. Yeah.
Next week.
It's going to be amazing. So I've had the pleasure of reading Freddy's book, The Lost Art of Resurrection, Initiation, Secret Chambers, and the Quest for the Other World, which is very exciting. And so I think, of course, Edgar Cayce Foundation, again, one of my favorite organizations. Freddy is a best-selling author and leading researcher of restricted history, which I can't wait to hear more about what that actually entails, restricted history, ancient knowledge, sacred sites, and the interaction between temples and consciousness. He is also a leading world expert on crop circles and has 5 books published in 5 languages, described by one CEO as perhaps the best metaphysical speaker in the world right now. For nearly 2 decades, Freddy has been an international keynote speaker with notable appearances at the International Science and Consciousness Conferences. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's exhausting just hearing my biography.
And I didn't even finish it, actually.
I better live up to this.
I'm sure you will. So, where are you originally from?
Oh, God, it's a long story, even longer than my biography. I was actually born in Portugal, and I moved to London when I was 8, and then I lived half of my life in America. So this is why I have this ridiculous accent, which is sort of transatlantic.
Nice.
So right now I'm living in Maine, diametrically opposite to Seattle. So we're just getting our fall season going on over here.
And it's going to be gorgeous, obviously.
I hope so.
Maine is a hot spot for fall leaves. Well, Americans, we love accents. Your lovely coastal bi-regional accent is a favorite of ours. So I'm sure that will make the show even more fun for our listeners and callers. So what made you interested in sacred sites?
I've sort of come to the conclusion that we're all sort of hardwired to bring something to the earth when we incarnate, and some of us are lucky, we find it early on in life, and some of us are a little bit sort of less lucky and we find it later on in life. As long as you find it, that's the most important thing. But I was drawing pyramids when I was 3.
Wow.
I didn't really belong with other children. Growing up was very, very difficult. And, I got seduced by the usual things that you do here. And I went into the world of photography and advertising. I was a creative director for many years. But getting fired regularly actually gave me the opportunity to go back to what I was doing and really passionate about, which is to study places of veneration. And I always wanted to know what made them tick, what made them sacred, why were pyramids interesting, and why were all the mounds and Stonehenge and, these places that were built with ludicrously sized rocks, why were they important? And I haven't really stopped for 20 years because it's one door that you open, you go into another door, and then there's another 15 doors behind it. And it's amazing how extraordinary the technology is that these people used, as much as 10 to 12,000 years ago, to leave us a legacy of what can only describe as portals into another level of reality. And I can't find anything on earth that's more interesting to study than that.
Wow. Okay, that's a beautiful description of something that you have enormous passion with, which is phenomenal. So in the book, there's pictures of all these sites. Did you actually take these photographs then?
Most of them, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I actually try to sort of talk about the things that I actually experience, and draw from other people who've had similar things to build a sort of an idea that I have to sort of to sell.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like being a lawyer, where you have to basically look at a murder scene and make a case in court. I have to make a case as to why these places that we travel to around the world, whether it's Stonehenge or the pyramids, why are they important? What do they do to us, and what do they do for us? So it's part of building that science and mysticism, where the two go together very well, and then give people a good sort of foundation from which to jump. So, it's also very well being invited to dinner parties and talking about metaphysics. But
I'm sure you are a hit at every dinner party that you arrive to. I'm sure.
Well, if you want to be invited back, you've got to give people some science as well. Otherwise, they look at you and they roll their eyes backwards and they go, "What's he talking about?" So that's my job, is to try and ground this stuff a little bit more and give it some basis from which we can have a sort of a conversation for people who are much more skeptical.
And so the premise is really, or the truth of the situation, is that most of these sacred places that were created, many, many moons ago, were actually to help people to expand their consciousness at the time of death into a higher realm of awareness. Is that correct? Am I understanding that well?
Kind of, except it was more of a metaphorical death. They actually did it while they were living. The idea was to try and get them to experience the other world, to try and access another level of reality. Some people might call it the fourth dimension. While they were living, and famous people like Plato and Pythagoras and Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton, they actually did these initiations, where they went to these special chambers around the world, and they actually were able to, under a certain guidance, and it usually took them about 3 years of preparation to do this.
Wow.
It's not like doing an ayahuasca trip. I mean, this is serious stuff. It was an induced near-death experience, which sounds really harrowing. But they did it, and they came back saying, the only way to discover real wisdom is to undergo this exchange of the body in these sacred places, and you are taken out of body for several days. You're completely aware of what's going on the other side, and you return with valuable information, and then you implement it. And some people became healers, teachers, great governors, and so forth. So obviously there's a huge benefit to the fact that these places were built, not just to tell the time and the seasons, which of course they do very well, but I mean, if you're going to build a temple or a stone circle to tell the, whereabouts the sun and the moon and the stars are, you can do that with sticks. You don't need 100-ton rocks to do it. So there is a technology that is involved that actually does get you to have an induced near-death experience where you leave the body, come back, and you are a completely different person.
So they didn't actually have a physical death, but they somehow had some metaphysical death of some sort, just because of the energy of the place that they were in?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the actual composition of so many of these sites, and after you've been to enough of them, it starts becoming a bit obvious that, why would you drag these stones from as much as 400 miles away when the stone, a mile away would have done? So you look at the type of stone, and it has certain characteristics which do kind of act like a computer. They actually store energy, the Earth's actual natural energy.
Right.
The sites themselves are all located at the intersecting lines of the Earth's energy lines, which we now know thanks to the technology that we have available. We also have the fact that there's water running under the actual temples, even in the desert. And when you look at the way that water behaves with the geology, it creates its own electrical field. Then you've got the sacred geometry, which we now know also has an effect on the human body. So when you combine these things, you're creating a bit of an energetic environment, which you don't see, but you can feel.
Right.
And if you place yourself in a state of receptivity in these sites and allow yourself to be open to possibility, then an extraordinary magic does happen. And they were very much adamant that this was supposed to be experienced while you were living and not to be left at a time when you die, because by then it's too late. So they were very adamant upon looking at a metaphorical death. In fact, they called it the living resurrection, going back as much as 6,000 years ago. It's something that was coined by the Christians 8,000 years later. So, and they actually got it quite wrong, by the way.
Right, because they meant it was about Christ, not necessarily about all of these beautiful time-space realities.
And that's what got me excited about the connection between the two, because, I mean, I was raised as a Catholic and then sort of recovered very quickly. And I began to wonder, how far back is the concept of resurrection? And it goes back to at least 8,000 BC in Japan. But they weren't talking about people getting crucified and getting up from a dead body. They said that's actually impossible. And I began to understand that the early Christian people said the same thing, which is why the church ended up murdering millions of them to keep this thing secret, that Jesus was the only person that could go for a resurrection, that he was nailed to a cross, gets up 3 days later, except the template for the story was actually borrowed from a man called Mithra. He was a part metaphysical, part real person who had lived 2,000 years before Christ, and in India, 6,000 years before Christ. And the death was actually metaphorical. And when you get nailed to a cross, you are essentially nailing your body, your spiritualized body, to the cross that represents the material world. So it was all about a metaphor. And the early Christians knew this, which is why people like the Apostle Thomas and the Apostle Philip wrote the Gnostic Gospels that were banned by the church. And they said very much that anyone who believes the literal interpretation of the resurrection is a fool. They're totally misleading. So this is what got me excited about writing the book, because it tells a completely different story that's been going on.
You know what I find fascinating about all these beautiful, massive energy creations that were created? I just can't imagine that only man was allowing or facilitating the creation of these places. I mean, do you think the consciousness was elevated in the individuals who were able to pick the perfect stones? Or do you think they had some ritual around, downloaded information so they could create these dimensional complexities? Or do you think they had some help from other beings, that that don't really live in the human realm? Yeah.
Nothing surprises me anymore, having studied all the stuff that I've studied over the years. And, I'm actually sort of writing a new book actually about the origin of where the stuff comes from. And it's very hard to figure out, because most of the information is actually under the ocean. It all went under in about 9,700 BC during a big flood, which everybody on Earth, all indigenous cultures, have written about. And they claim that they got their information from an earlier civilization of people who were very much human, but they were very much taller, and a lot of them had very elongated heads. And this has got me very interested to find out where these people lived and what was the root of all of this. But at the same time, where did they get it from? So if we're talking about something that goes back 20,000 years, did they perceive it? And our predecessors certainly were much more predisposed to perceiving the landscape than we are today. Just talk to any Aboriginal person and they'll tell you about that. Any person from the Native American Southwest, and they'll say, well, yeah, we don't build sacred sites. We feel the energy in the land. We don't have to build stuff. We know it's there. So I think that they sensed it. I'm also open to the fact that maybe someone crash-landed here and also had knowledge of this, and they also handed it to us. So I think all of the above are true.
Wow. A very fascinating, interesting read. So what is one of your favorite, hot spots, if you will? Because you've traveled to all of these destinations. In fact, you take tours of people to these destinations and explain the history and allow them to have the experience of the energy. So do you have a favorite, or maybe one that's in the top 5 or something of that nature?
It changes. I mean, I just came back from Scotland and England, and I took, I only take 6 people with me.
Wow.
Poor buggers. They never recover. Actually, they usually come back to a completely changed life.
Of
I
course.
mean, they don't know what's hit them.
Of course.
And it really depends what I'm looking for at the time, because believe it or not, each side actually behaves very differently. And I kind of treat them like my extended family. I can't be away from them for too long. I start getting withdrawal symptoms. So one of my favorites, actually, in the southwest of America, is actually Shiprock, also called Sebitai by the Navajo. And it literally is at the 4 corners, and it's a natural landscape temple. So the site itself is a natural place of power. If you haven't been there, you really haven't lived. It's a place where I've seen grown men cry, and I'm one of them. It is so powerful that you can actually hear people dancing around you, and you kind of start joining in. It's the memory of the folklore is so concentrated at this site that it doesn't have to show it off. Another one is, let's see, I was just up in Scotland, so I see the stone circle of Callanish in the Isle of Lewis, which is very remote. It's one of the most well-preserved stone circles in the world. And if you didn't think that rocks could talk back to you, you will be mistaken when you get there.
Wow.
Because it's so pure, so unadulterated by human interaction, because it's only been recently rediscovered. It was actually covered in peat by about 12 feet. The locals thought they were just a bunch of little rocks until they cut the peat away and found that they have 19-foot tall stones.
Wow.
So it's perfectly preserved. It hasn't been sort of adulterated by tourism. So it's a wonderful way to sort of connect with the site the way it used to be. And you really can hear the stones speak back to you. And it's unnerving at first, but once you get used to it, it's like driving your car. It becomes second nature. And then it becomes like a drug. You can't get enough of it.
You know, I've had the pleasure of, listening to trees and rocks and all of those things. But I haven't had the pleasure of being in a place where, it happens for everyone when they visit the site. So when you hear the rocks, is it another voice? Is it like a typing that goes across your brain? And how is the experience, and is it similar for everyone who visits the site?
I think for me it kind of sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, you will come to this rock right now. It's different for everybody. I mean, some people who do this very regularly, myself included, I can actually sort of almost see the people that used to be there. I can see the energy around it. And people said this to me 20 years ago. I thought they were mad. And now I can actually do it, because the more you do it, the more you absorb the energy, the more you raise your frequency, and the more you can actually perceive beyond the physical, which is what it's all about, really.
Which is what it's
about
all
the origin
about.
of sacred space.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you talk about, that we're all in search for enlightenment and, the byproduct of self-empowerment, which really means to be multisensory.
Exactly, and that's what they wanted to do in the first place. And it brings us back to the whole origin of why did they put this network of power places along the Earth? Because it is a network. You can actually do the mathematics, and it's all very mathematically connected. And it was all about getting you to have a sort of a self-empowering situation where you become much more aware of the limitations of the physical world. You travel beyond the physical into the non-physical. And you can do this as many times as you want, to the point where you actually become super abundant, and you can do it even by sitting here in front of your desk.
Exactly.
There are people in India that can do this. Yeah, you don't need a temple eventually. You can believe that you are the temple, just like Jesus said, the temple of God is within you, not outside you. You basically become the temple, and then you can do it at will. But the idea is that once you forget the instructions, the temples were built to remind you that you are a god. Right. And that's the important thing to remember.
Because people tend to run their energy so low and detached, from their magnificence. And so one of the ways, which is wonderful that you wrote this book for many, many reasons, just the history is interesting enough and so knowledgeable, because most of us don't know anything about these sacred spaces, at least not in the way that you've studied and expressed them. But to have someone kind of jumpstart their subatomic particles to be in alignment with their super consciousness or their authentic self, and then, as you said, to be able to then, through enough of that interaction and connection, then to be able to do it anywhere at any time, which is really the goal, is to be in that magnificence as we make decisions.
Exactly, yeah. We just have to get distracted by earthly things. I mean, you've got to be at the earth. I mean, you've got to find out what the president is up to. You've got to find out what the snakes are doing. But don't get caught up in it. If you have no direct control over it, don't get caught up in it. Just look at the headlines and, be attentive to what's going on. But, but at the same time, you've got to also have a step in the other world to make sure that you understand what you are doing here, what the purpose of your soul is. And if you can get that far, you've made huge progress, because you are now in control. No one can really tell you what to do. I remember the people who practiced all of this and rediscovered it in the Middle Ages. It was the Knights Templar, who get a very bad press all the time. And believe me, there are much more spiritual people that they've been given for to believe. In fact, I wrote another book about that too. Basically, they rediscovered this whole concept of the raising the dead, as they called it. It was a metaphor, because what they said that when you're actually living an ordinary life and consumed by daily affairs, you are dead. You are spiritually dead.
Wow.
But once you actually discover the joys of paradise, as they called it, and communicate with the temples and within yourself, and discover the bigger picture, then you are risen from the dead. In fact, in India, they call ordinary people corpses, and the people who have had this initiation, the risen. It's kind of interesting. They still call it that way. And in India, they have something called Kriya Yoga, which is about the nearest equivalent I've come to find of a practice, a kind of a yogic practice, where you can actually do what you experience in sacred temples within the confines of your living room. And it takes again, a lot of practice. a lot of perseverance, but once you do it, you can be out of body for days sitting cross-legged, and you come back and you go, well, that was interesting, I'm hungry. Because you can leave for quite an amount of time, but the fringe benefits are extraordinary because of what you see, what you discover about yourself, and the mechanics of nature are quite self-empowering.
They are. And so we're really so blessed that for however these beautiful sites were created, whether it was only the mortal man or a multiple of energies that allowed these things that are still very much alive and well here, centuries later, which is quite remarkable, that their energy is so high and so empowered and undisturbed by our crazy technical, insane time-space reality, that they literally, can project us into our authentic selves.
Exactly. It's kind of funny because, I get a lot of skeptics that have arguments with me about how, the ancients were so moronic and we are so technologically advanced. And I said, well, that's absolutely true. We are technologically advanced, but we're also very poor in knowledge. We have a lot of information. We are surrounded by information. We are drowning information, but we have so little knowledge. All you have to do is go into a shop and ask someone over the counter a basic question about something, and they can't actually think through outside of a spreadsheet. They can't think laterally anymore because you're so condemned by so much information, but you don't know what to do with it. And I think that's where the ancestors were much more clever. They tapped into nature. They saw how things actually worked. Because when you think about it, we are born of the earth. Therefore, by not understanding how the earth works and not understanding our relationship to it, we basically have divorced ourselves from the very planet that gives us meaning and gives us life. And I think we've set ourselves up for the first time in living history a huge Achilles heel, whereby we don't know what's really happening around us, and that's actually quite dangerous. And you remember that time when the hurricane went through New Jersey a few years ago?
Right.
There were people out there with cell phones who did not know how to buy a loaf of bread because their app didn't work, because their cell phone didn't work. That is really dangerous, I think, and I think that the sacred sites are a wonderful reminder of bringing you back into a connection with the earth itself, with the natural world, and observe the natural world, observe your relationship to it. Once you're there, you can actually, I haven't worn a watch in so long, I can now tell you what the time is.
Totally.
I know what the weather's going to be without even checking the Weather Channel because I'm much more in tune with what's going on. And believe me, once you start doing this on a daily basis, it becomes second nature and you realize it is so easy. So for them, I would say they're actually much more advanced than we are today in that respect.
I think you're absolutely correct on that entire conversation about really being in sync with, our environment. I haven't worn a watch in years myself, and literally, if I wear one, it will break. So when your energy starts to change anyway, it's almost like the universe is speaking to you about, it doesn't want you to go back in time in terms of things that are going to contract you and slow down the expansion of your consciousness, so that first of all, like in your case, you don't even need to check the Weather Channel, which is, I'm going to be looking for that experience. I don't think I have that one imprinted into my body yet. But I think it's fascinating to allow ourselves to follow the clock of our own inner being, and what feels right to us, and not necessarily be dictated by the man-made world all around us.
In fact, there's a wonderful study that was done by a group at Princeton years ago where they actually looked at this stuff and they said, well, what if it's possible to actually measure the energy of sacred sites and what makes them tick? And what did they do to you? And they first started out by developing a computer which can measure the background or the area around you to find out how your consciousness influences the electromagnetic field around you. And they can measure that. So they did that in Wyoming at Devil's Tower. And believe me, the locals did not call it Devil's Tower. It's a mispronunciation. It's a sacred site, and they found that the meditating there caused the machine to go up quite severely. They then did a comparison over at a Walmart shopping a car park, and of course they found that nothing really happened there. And then they decided to go to Egypt, and they found that when the main scientists walked around quietly in contemplation in the temples, the machine was picking up readings as high as a meditating group. Wow. So when they put a bunch of people meditating at the temples, the combination just threw the machine way, way above normal scale. So the temples by themselves are registering an energy frequency by themselves. So you go there with the right intent, and of course, it just elevates the God that you are, the temple that you are, into something much more stratospheric, if there's such a word.
Sure. No, it's absolutely wonderful. And for those of you who are in the Northwest and want to visit Freddy and his beautiful book, The Lost Art of Resurrection, he's going to be at East West Bookshop on October 21st between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Was that correct? Wow, that's a long time you're going to be there. That's a workshop.
It is a long day, yeah. I'm doing 3 workshops, so I'm going to be talking a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So luckily there's going to be hundreds of photographs.
Wow. And it's Search for the Other World, Unlock the Mysteries of the Ancients, sponsored by the Edgar Cayce Foundation. Again, one of my favorite organizations. So we are so blessed to have you for that long of period of time here at East West Bookshop. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
I'd be lovely to come back to Seattle again.
Oh my gosh. Well, and we're going to have the leaves are starting to turn here, so hopefully we'll remind you of home while you're here as well. and do you think, I already know the answer to this question, but do you think that because you've visited all these incredible sites and, of course, because of your belief system and your own desire to grow consciously, that the participants sitting with you during this workshop, that will help them to change their subatomic particles and, at the very least, begin them to expand their consciousness as well?
I hope so.
Oh, I think so.
There's a lot of note-taking that goes on, and I always forget at the beginning of each presentation, I say, actually, I meant to say that you can actually get the book or the DVDs to go with it. You don't have to sit there and actually write all this stuff out. And they go, oh, damn it. So I'm very naughty in that respect. But no, everybody leaves wide-eyed. They look like they've been hit, the deer in the headlight look. Because I do give you a hell of a lot of information. I've been to so many conferences where you sit there for 2 hours, you pay a fortune, and you learn one thing.
Right.
Everything gets padded out with lots of metaphors and lots of adjectives and pronouns. And I'm thinking, I could do better than this, and people have actually complained that I actually give them way too much because they leave with their head full, and then everybody goes to the pub afterwards, which is always a good way of really getting this information into your body as well. And that's where we get some real work done.
Well, I think, as you give your beautiful workshop, that you'll be holding that space, that energy of each one of those gorgeous time-space realities, and people are going to literally ingest that into their being. So I think it'll be a fortunate thing. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. And
well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure getting to know you for a short period of time and sharing your wisdom with our audience. So thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to take a break here on the Marie Manuchehri Show. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Marie Manuchehri. I wanted to invite you to my next Reiki workshop, October 20th through the 22nd. Reiki is still my absolute favorite modality. There are many modalities out in the world that assist individuals to help others heal and themselves through the beautiful magic of energy work. I fell in love with Reiki over 20 years ago, and I still use it in my practice every single day. I really believe that subatomic particles are what hold us back. Stagnant subatomic particles trapped with emotions that we won't look at and won't release. Something like Reiki can actually stimulate those subatomic particles to wake up, release trapped emotions, free your body, your mind, and your subatomic energy so that you can have what you truly want in your life and what you truly deserve. So join me October 20th through the 22nd in Redmond, Washington for my next transformative Reiki workshop. For more information, visit energyintuitive.com.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Join us and Susan G. Komen Puget Sound. Volunteer, make a donation, or schedule a screening for yourself or someone you love. Talk with your doctor about your personal risk for breast cancer. Know what's normal for you, and be sure to tell your doctor about any changes. Breast cancer screenings are quick and easy, and they save lives. Do a good thing for yourself or someone you love. For more on mammograms and how anyone can get breast health services, get informed and get involved at KomenPugetSound.org.
On Friday, Nance and Mitchell bring on on Rosemary Ellen Guiley with travel tales of the paranormal and high strangeness.
On Saturday, Michael Gelb discusses the art of connection and relationship skills that are immediately useful in today's society.
In hour number 2, Ramananda John Welshans returns with ideas for keeping yourself together when the world is coming apart at the seams.
Bringing you fascinating talk since 2007, we are Manson Mitchell, Friday and Saturday mornings at 10 on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Having trouble picking up the Alternative Talk 1150 signal? Well, whether you live in Portugal or Puyallup, Tasmania or Tacoma, India or Issaquah, you can get Alternative Talk 1150 programming streamed live on your computer via our website, 1150kknw.com. It's true, just visit 1150kknw.com and click on the Listen Live button. Make sure you have an audio player installed that will play streaming MP3 audio such as Winamp, iTunes, or current versions of Real Player or Windows Player. Visit our website for more details. Remember, that's 1150kknw.com.
Marie Manuchehri, RN and renowned energy healer, provides accessible instruction for helping you tune in to your health at a deeper level in her first book, Intuitive Self-Healing. Offering a compendium of illuminating case studies and practical self-care techniques, Marie invites you to learn more about the chakras, energetic preventative care, and tools for accessing intuition. Intuitive Self-Healing is available at Amazon.com and EnergyIntuitive.com.
You found us. Maybe you've been guided to listen. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to the Marie Manuchehri Show. We're live here in beautiful fall Seattle. My favorite time of the year, by the way. I love those leaves turning. It makes me so happy. And it's the crisp air in the morning. So we talk about the weather at the top of the show typically, because I'm hoping that you'll look around in your own environment at your own weather, or maybe it's nighttime wherever you are in the world, and that you get into your body and become present so that we can all grow together in awareness as much as possible. Even though we're not visiting a sacred site right now, Benny, we're not going to Wyoming, which, you know, I mean, it's so close here in the U.S.
Well, I think you visit here and I visit there every day. Or
every day.
So those are our sacred sites.
Yes, this
right?
is true.
Yours especially on Thursdays at 9.
Exactly. This is a sacred site for us.
That's what I'm
this
saying.
Is very
yeah,
true.
exactly.
But I don't know. I'm thinking I might be planning a retreat around a sacred site. I don't know. That's just kind of sounding amazing. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and go to the phone lines, and I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can for the rest of the show.
Yep. And if you'd like to join us, 877-825-8828 is the number, 877-825-8828. And we have Devi calling in from Seattle. Hello, Devi. Welcome to the show. Thank you for waiting patiently, by the way.
Yes. Thank you, Devi. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm really excited. I've been trying for a while.
Oh, have you?
I won the lotto.
Is this your first time calling into the show?
It is, and I literally was trying to find money to count because my vibrations are so high right now. I'm so excited.
Well, great. Congratulations, and thank you for your persistence. I truly appreciate it. What can I do for you?
So I've been listening for a while, and I feel like I have a lot of great tools, but I'm having a hard time implementing them, or like finding the drive and the motivation.
The inspiration, right.
Yes. I mean, sometimes I'll have bursts of it, but then I'll fade away. And I mean, I have a lot going on in my life because I have 3 young girls and a husband. And
yeah, right.
work.
Now I understand. My kids are all grown now, but I understand you have a lot of challenges. So how much me time do you carve away from the kids, the hubby, the house, and whatever else you do in the world? How much?
A lot.
A lot?
Think, like in the morning, mostly I have a good chunk of time, and
good.
I'm pretty selfish in general, just because I love listening to like meditations and doing fun things like your Reiki workshop.
Oh, are you taking the workshop next weekend?
I actually already did.
Oh, you did?
It.
Oh, thank you for taking it. That's lovely. Yeah. Thank you. So you know what you want, but you're not letting yourself have it, or?
Yeah. Well, it just oh gosh. I even talked to my husband beforehand. I'm like, how do I articulate this? I just feel like there's just a lot of chaos in my life, and like I have like high stress and like intense anger and then like laziness. And so I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. I'm not like really doing any of these big or even small things that would bring more joy and light into my life.
So what sounds like to me is that you tend to experience frustration often. And
actually, that's the word he used. Yeah.
Oh, great husband, by the way. You know, and people who've married well, who have chosen a good partner for them, they should listen to their partners, because I think their partners really get them and understand them and have great advice for them. So this frustration actually is a trap for you. It's a pattern. It started right around age 3, and I'm sure it's a past life thing too. I'm sure it's not just of this lifetime, because here you have a good life, you've got a good partner, you've got a good family, you guys are fortunate.
Really
you know, there's nothing really wrong, but yet you're still kind of pissed off. You know what I mean? And so what it's doing is it's actually blocking you. So every time you go into this, this frustration, and this is about your spiritual growth and your own independence. You want to have something that's just for you, not just for the kids and the husband, and, you know, which is lovely. Everyone should have something in their life that is just for them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And no, that does not mean a latte after you drop the kids off from school.
That's good, because I don't drink coffee.
Okay, but that's not what that means. This means that you want something very sacred and highly personal and high vibration. You know what you want. You may not be able to type it out in exact language of what it is, but you know that you want something mystical and spiritual and high vibrational in your life consistently every day that would probably even be a career path for you. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually, I'm like searching for my career path, and so I am.
Right. So here's the deal. Nothing's wrong. You are totally on path, but every time you move into frustration, you are literally stopping the flow of energy. And this is a pattern of yours. This is a historic pattern, and so you have to break it. Every time that frustration comes up, you're going to have to think of it like learning a new workout, or taking a class at the gym that you've never taken before. You know, your muscles are not going to necessarily know how to, execute the exercise faithfully. It's going to take a little bit of time, and your muscles might even hurt. And that's what it's going to be like every time you encounter this frustration and you choose to not let yourself go down there, because it's so familiar that it's almost like getting on a sled on the top of a beautiful hill covered in snow, and there's no way you can stop it. But every time you do that, you are holding yourself back.
Is there like blocks that I have on my chakras, or
no?
Do I just know my guide well enough?
I just explained the block, and so a lot of people have a hard time when something is explained to them in simplicity, which is really the best and only way that the universe answers things for us. Everything is always simple. It's not complicated. Our overthinking, overanalyzing, processing mind, which is really part of the human condition and has nothing to do with our elevated consciousness, that is what you're trying to get into, what we all try to get into to solve problems, but that's not where the answers are going to be. Your frustration that you visit often, it's an easy energy for you. Actually, it's one of the things your husband was attracted to you about, because he likes that fiery side of you as well. But it's now hurting you, so you cannot go there. You have to stop. And I think that probably you're not as aware of how many times you visit that energy throughout the day, but you do it often. And sometimes it may even eventually come into depression or a sadness.
It does.
Yeah. So
it does.
So the frustration is actually a higher energy than the sadness or the depression. So that's why it's been a positive go-to for you. But you have to stop that, because that is what's blocking you. Okay?
I'm feeling really good. Yeah,
all right. That's
excited.
your homework.
Okay.
All right. Have a lovely day.
Much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Debbie, for joining us. 877-825-8828 is the number. 877-825-8828. Let's take Amy calling in from Chicago. Hello, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Amy. Hi. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? I'm so happy I got through. Oh my gosh.
Have you called into the show before?
Never.
Oh, well,
but I've listened to all your podcasts, and I'm a huge fan of yours. I admire your work and your directness. So
I'm direct.
Me straight.
Okay, I will. First of all, I love Chicago. It's probably one of my favorite cities. I bought the cutest pair of shoes there, by the way. Actually, Benny, you like shoes more than I do, don't you? Yes. I bought some gorgeous shoes in London too last year, so I've got to like dig out these shoes and start wearing them.
Yeah, I want to see what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll dress nice next time because I usually am wearing my workout
and I want
outfit
you to hoof it up the stairs in them
Thursday.
too, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to hoof it up the stairs
kidding.
in those shoes.
You just put them on right at the top.
Okay, Amy. So what can I do for you?
I resonated a lot with the previous caller, just in terms of purpose and moving forward. I'm 43. I've raised 2 kids on my own. They're older. I had them really young. So I felt like I went through a lot of my life just like that was my purpose, raising the kids.
Sure,
and, it's kind of like survival mode.
Yeah.
So the past year, I've done a lot of work. I've like in and out of, energy work and the metaphysical stuff.
Right.
And this past year really kind of committed to that. So it's been great, but it also left me very like just unsatisfied with life, but not in a way where like, oh, I'm depressed or angry, but just like, okay, there's something more, Freddy Silva kind of touched on it with like soul's purpose. So I feel like I need to be doing something else, but I'm kind of stuck in the rat race now and just looking to kind of move forward and see if my purpose should be helping people or.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's something that makes you very happy. It makes you very, so here, I already drew out your energy whenever I read for someone on the air, right? I draw out the energy since you're not in my living room or we're not looking at each other through Skype. And your subatomic particles are really low in your physical body. I love the organization of your chakra system. I love the size of your chakra system. I love the spin of the vortices, but the energy is relatively depleted. So what I was shown as I looked at the depletion is that you literally leak out a lot of your energy. And it's not in the typical way that I see leaking, which can kind of lead into health issues. It's not that way. It's almost like you allow the energy that's in your body to move into your auric field, and then you leak it through your aura. And you do it in a way to help people, by the way. Like you walk around like this very kind, almost like Christ-like energy, by the way, where, you just want to help every living soul on the planet and help them to have a wonderful life. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to fire yourself from this job immediately because, first of all, you need your energy inside your body to create and manifest all the things you want in your life. And everybody's fine. Even if people don't think they're fine, and even, of course, all the terrible things that are happening in the world, everyone has spirit guides and everyone has a higher self and everyone has a God consciousness and everyone is growing and learning. And what is really going to help the rest of the planet move towards the place that you're looking for. But I also want to remind you, this is the planet of contrast. So things aren't supposed to be hunky-dory here all the time. People usually learn through contrast. They go, oh, I hate what just happened in my life, or why did this person do that to me? And then they go, oh, I don't want that anymore. And then they change their direction and start to move towards the things that they really want. But they need the clarity, or we believe we need the clarity of contraction. And that's one of the reasons why we reincarnate to the earth realm. So, running around and trying to help everybody when they really want to have these experiences, whether they're conscious of it or not, so they can have the contraction, so that they can evolve and move forward. You know what I'm saying? How this is not in your best interest.
Right.
Okay. So that's number one.
I guess, how do I stop myself from doing that? Or how do I know when I'm doing that? Because it's a natural, it's a natural thing.
It is
for me.
a
I'm
natural
very
thing. I know, but you have to stop that empathy. And I know that sounds terrible and mean. It's not. It's just that it's not helping you. That's why your energy looks like a ghost, because you keep giving your energy away. And I want to point out that most people are not going to take your energy in. So when you leak out your life force, as many empathic people do all day long, you just do it in a different way. I like the way you do it because it doesn't hurt your body. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. I mean, I still don't want you to do it, but I'm happy that it doesn't cause harm to your physical form, which is amazing. What I want you to focus on, and what I have shared with many people on the show, and of course in classes and whatnot, is I don't do the job I do to help people. That is not my driving force. And I want you to really listen to this part. I do it because it brings me extraordinary joy. So when I draw out someone's energy, when I look at a chakra, when I can see your auric field, releasing your life force, that is what turns me on and makes me excited and brings me joy, the ability to hear, see, and feel energy. Now, when people align with what brings them actual joy, that is how they help other beings. That's how we help humanity. But you first have to discover what brings you joy, and that's the part that you keep skipping over. It's like you know it. You go, okay, well, I know I got to figure that out, but I got to go help everyone because that's my life purpose. And that is true. Your life purpose all of us is to affect others positively and in high frequency and in truth and in balance, but that only comes from personal joy.
Okay.
So you have to go figure out what lights your soul on fire and stay focused to it and stay connected to it and not care about anybody else. You know, even though you're not a social worker, because I think you work in some corporate kind of life somehow, your energy looks like a social worker, and social workers are vastly underpaid and exhausted people. So, don't go be a social worker, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so you could even say a prayer to yourself every day. You know, I'm so grateful that I allow myself to align to my highest purpose, which is to experience joy every single day. You know, start talking to yourself, start communicating to your higher self and the truth of what you want to experience. Don't let yourself go down the river of, you know, I got to go take care of everybody before I can allow myself to live my passion, or that is my passion, is to sacrifice for others. And that's not true. That's a very old paradigm. And we're learning to be spiritually selfish, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Have fun in Chicago. Go walk over to that beautiful, huge lake that looks and smells like an ocean.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, for joining us. Let's travel back here to Snohomish. We have Shirley joining us. Hello, Shirley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Shirley. How are you?
I am good. Thank you.
Have we spoken before?
Yeah, I went to your Spain retreat.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yes.
Thank you so much for going. Wasn't that so fun?
I loved it. I can't wait to do another one.
Well, we're looking at a few places right now. I'm looking at the Greek islands right now, and so that might be next year. Or now that I've interviewed Freddy Silva, I mean, I'm obviously going to be looking for doing retreats at sacred sites. I mean, there's one in Wyoming.
That sounds amazing.
I know, right? I want to do 2 a year, like maybe one stateside and one, you know, international. But thank you. Wasn't Spain incredible?
Loved it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, loved it. And that was my first trip I ever went on my own, and it was so empowering. Yeah,
and so how were you when you went on your own? Like, did you cry or anything the night before?
No.
You're
I
so
didn't
brave.
cry. I was excited and nervous, you know, but I thought, okay, one step at a time, one step at a time.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. That was truly a magical experience for me. And, you know, we had great hosts where we stayed. It was just
awesome.
amazing. And the food, oh my gosh.
The food and the cook.
And the cooks. I mean, everybody was just lovely and kind and, yeah, well, wonderful. So what can I do for you today?
So me and my partner have put out there about moving to Hawaii for no other reason other than we like it.
Yeah, okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay.
We just came back from the Big Island. I know you just had a retreat there, and I was taking the Alan Cohen program.
Oh, really? Oh, my gosh. I know.
Yes.
Because you stayed in the hotel that's not too far from the retreat center that we were at, because Alan came and gave a talk. He was just so incredibly kind during the retreat. And you are a lucky woman to be part of his coaching program, because he was on fire. I'm not easily impressed. I already loved him anyway, but I'd never seen him in action in a small, you know, setting. I've only seen him speak, you know, to large groups. Yeah, you are a lucky woman. Okay, so you want to go live in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, and I mean, again, for no other reason other than it feels good.
Well, so you are now just supporting what I just said to our other caller, our most recent caller. You want to follow what brings you joy. It does. I mean, I wanted to, you know, when I didn't understand why I wanted to go to nursing school. It made no logical sense to me because my family is so non-conventional in their medical beliefs. And yet I had a beautiful, amazing experience when I went to get my blood drawn when I was pregnant with my oldest, when I had to walk in a hospital. And that's what was part of the force that made me get curious about medicine. And I still think about working in the hospital every single day of my life. I loved it so much. So you are on the right track. Whatever brings you joy is a magnet. It's calling you. It's going, come on over here. Hello, come on over here, right? And we don't know 100% that you're going to end up living in Hawaii, but what we do know for sure, that if that's the best place for you guys to be, you're going to live there. We don't know what kind of cool experiences, interesting stuff that's going to happen as both of you allow yourself to be devoted to the joy of living in Hawaii. Maybe you're going to travel there 3 times a year. We don't know what's going to happen. Like someone could say, hey, we need a house sitter for 3 months of every year on the Big Island or Maui, or we don't know what's going to happen for sure. And that's the part I think that's hard for humans. Humans always want to know what's going to happen. But if you just follow your joy with abandoned gratitude, then you're going to find out what's going to happen. But as soon as we set up expectations and they're not always met, we start to get disappointed. And that lowers vibration. So stay in the joy and the pleasure and the fun of, we want to live on, we feel like joy when we think of living on the island of Hawaii, and we're going to keep our vibration there, and then we'll see what happens. Something amazing will happen, I promise you.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Oh, and maybe you can do, because when you're a coach, you can be anywhere in the world.
Right.
Right? You absolutely can. Oh, that's so exciting. Congratulations. So did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you did. I was just, everything started to, I've seen all the signs. I keep hearing about it. My daughter had a dream about surfing last night.
Great.
I mean, it was just, there's just a lot of these little signs, and I'm like, oh, that's exciting. Ooh, that makes me nervous. Ooh, that's exciting.
And I want you to really elicit the energy of children, because children have really high natural vibration. And if we get them excited about something, I mean, they can just pop it into reality much faster than us older people who worry about when my kids were younger, they wanted to go on vacation to Hawaii. And I said, it's really not in the budget. I was kind of newly, single, divorced. But we went ahead and made a visionary board. And we talked about bikinis and, going to the beach and playing with sea turtles. And all of a sudden, I got this huge refund from the IRS that I was not expecting. And we went to Hawaii on vacation.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in fact, one of my children was so, they had this, they also visualized that we would be renting in a Hummer. And I said, I'm not renting a Hummer when we're on the island. But they actually got what they wanted, because I forgot to secure a rental car during the holidays. And the only car left on the lot was one of the smaller Hummers. Yeah. So I had to drive it around. I mean, the kids were thrilled, of course. So elicit that young energy, because they don't have thankfully, the negative experiences that we have encountered on Earth that stop us from that vibration. So, yeah, you might be moving to the Hawaiian Islands, my dear. How exciting is that?
Very exciting. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marie.
You're welcome. Have a gorgeous day. And thank you again for coming to Spain. That was very memorable.
Of course. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All righty.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Shirley. And one more.
I think we can
okay,
do
let's
one
sneak
more.
in one
Yeah.
more. Lucky will be Christy from Illinois. We're going back to Chicago.
Okay, back to the
Illinois area.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? She's been waiting.
Hi, Christy.
Hi.
What can I do for you?
Well, I am having some breast health issues.
Can you speak? I can hear you, but can you just speak a little bit? Yeah.
Sure.
So you're having some breast health issues.
Right. I just have lots of questions for you.
But is this a diagnosed breast health issue?
Right. They said I have some masses in there, and they're just watching them. Don't know if it's anything to be concerned about.
Well, if they're just watching them, then they feel pretty confident that they're not malignant. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. So why are you worried about it?
I don't know.
Because physicians take breast cancer very seriously.
Right.
And if they thought that or knew that this was problematic, you would be doing lots of other things. So they've said, people do get lumps in their body. It happens.
Right.
Breast tissue can have cysts and tumors that are benign, and physicians usually don't remove the benign ones unless they start to grow, or that's why they're watching them. So your job, because you have a history of worrying, you know what I mean?
I do.
And I think, I don't know if it's this month or next month, but we're going to be interviewing an author who wrote a book about how not to worry. And I'm very excited for it. And so I hope you tune into that show, or at least listen to the podcast whenever it becomes available. You have to stop worrying. I want you to think of it. This is your opportunity right now in this moment. You have something in your life that you have been told by physicians that they're not going to worry about. They're just going to keep an eye on it, which is healthy. We don't want them to cut open or do things to you that is unnecessary.
Right.
Right? So this is your opportunity to learn to not move into worry.
Okay.
So what do you think about that when I say that?
Okay, I think I can do it.
You think so? I mean, I know you can, but you're going to have to work on this because this is your pattern. You go straight to worry. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And do you see a naturopath by chance? Have you ever seen one before?
No.
Okay, because I'd love for you to just go have a checkup to make sure that you're taking good care of your adrenal glands. I mean, you can also take the herb if you if it feels right to you, like rhodiola is a natural herb that helps support the adrenals, or holy basil, just some natural stuff. And I don't want you to worry about what I just said. I'm not worried. I just know that people who stress out and worry deplete their adrenal glands.
Okay.
And I would prefer that you support those beautiful puppies on top of your kidneys, and that you learn not to worry, because it's just a waste of energy.
Right.
Right? So
Yes.
so you're going to work on this, right?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
What are you going to do? I'm just curious, why I have another minute.
Just kind of let it go.
Okay. Maybe
it's in good hands.
Right. And then say to yourself, everything works out great for me. Only good will come from this.
Yeah.
I'm a healthy human being. I'm deeply in love with you, honey bunch. I love you so much. I want you to start talking to yourself like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got healthy breasts. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for being a healthy and wonderful body. I love you so much. Okay?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day in Illinois.
Okay.
All right. And we're so sorry we couldn't get to all of our callers. We apologize to Missouri and Bothell, and we wish everyone an absolutely gorgeous fall, or wherever you are, whatever you're experiencing, whatever time of day it is. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We all here appreciate it. Joyful blessings. Bye-bye.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guest, and callers, and not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. Contests are the responsibility of the host of this program and not KKNW. This is Alternative